taken the opportunity to address two events that have happened in the past few days that were similar in that they both involved an explosion, and both are very relatively rare occurrences. But we want to make clear that that is where the similarity ends, and we want to talk a little bit about those. I want to point out that I am joined. I'm Mayor Kirk Watson, Mayor of the City of Austin, Texas, and I'm joined today by two council members, Councilmember Paige Ellis and Councilmember Krista Lane. They are council members that represent districts where both of these events occurred. And again, although we had two similar events, they are not the same, and I think that's going to be a coincidence. You'll hear more about this. So yesterday, the Austin Police Department, with help, detonated explosive material found at a residence in the 2400 block of Vintage Stave Road in South Austin. APD's bomb squad and the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives had responded to the scene on Tuesday after receiving a call about a possible explosive device. Following an investigation and after the subject was taken into custody, it was determined that due to the amount of explosive material that the safest course of action was to detonate it on site. And so I want to say thank you to Chief Lisa Davis and everyone involved at APD. I want to thank them. I want to say thanks to them and point out that it is thanks to them that this incident ended with no injuries and relatively little damage other than to the home where the explosive material was found. I also want to say a big thank you to our partners at the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives for their work and assistance. The investigation into this incident is ongoing, and Chief Davis will provide more information in just a moment. As I pointed out already, also this week, there was a home explosion on Sunday in North Austin at a home on Double Spur Loop. Both Austin Fire Department and Austin Travis County EMS responded, along with several other county, state, and federal agencies. The Travis County Fire Marshal is the investigator in that case, and that investigation is ongoing. We can say that the issue was isolated to the home where the explosion occurred. On Monday, the City of Austin's Development Services Department began outreach to the properties that were impacted. Assessment teams visited each impacted property, completing more than 60 damage assessments. The Development Services Department, or DSD as we sometimes refer to it, is prioritizing review and permitting for all emergency repair work for these properties so that we don't get in the way of people being able to get their properties back where they want them. Again, we want to underscore that these events are entirely separate, with entirely separate apparent causes. In both cases, I'm proud of the response by the city departments and our county, state, and federal partners, and I'm incredibly grateful that there was no loss of life. So with that, I will ask Chief Davis to come to the podium and say a few words. Chief?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. All right, thank you. Good morning. I'm Lisa Davis. I am the Chief of Police for the Austin Police Department. Today I'm going to share some the investigative details regarding the APD bomb squad's response that began on Tuesday, April 15th, and the subsequent detonation of the explosive material. I think it's important to talk about why this 24 hours. On Tuesday evening, a call was received from a concerned citizen about potential bomb material inside of a residence. Patrol responded to that and immediately called our bomb squad, our EOD, to the scene. They are the experts. Once they were there, and you think about coming into the evening, there is a lot of investigative process that has to go into that. They have to get a search warrant. They have to get the people out of the house. They have to look at the surrounding area. That was done. The individual was immediately placed into custody, and then the houses surrounding the area were immediately vacated. So until that was done, I want to say a big thank you to Lieutenant Myrick, who stayed in the parking lot overnight, waiting for those search warrants to get done, waiting for all of the things to get completed so we could get this going. We did not ever leave that scene from the minute it came out, and so I just want to say thank you to that. All right. Let's see. All right, so we responded, and immediate assistance from Austin Fire and Austin Travis EMS, our federal partners again from the ATF and the FBI. Thank you for that. And again, when we talk about what it means to be part of a task force, this is it. This is a response, that coordinated effort, and what we saw. So thank you to our federal partners. Appreciate that. So a search warrant was completed for the resident, which resulted in locating a large quantity of homemade explosives and explosive precursors. In conjunction with, again, ATF, EMS, FBI, and AFD, APD bomb technicians executed a plan to render the scene safe. During the 24-hour investigative process, it was determined that the only way to safely detonate some of the explosive material inside of the residence was to detonate it on site. So if you can imagine getting inside and finding all of these chemicals, and again, in that 24-hour process, it was also about chemists getting involved, ATF, all of those professionals weighing in on what this looks like and what the potential that these chemicals could cause. So residents in the area, again, were evacuated out of an abundance of caution, and streets nearby were closed to ensure the safety of our community. The explosive material inside the home was detonated inside the residence at 5 p.m. yesterday. The home that contained the explosive material sustained major damage, and a house directly next door sustained some minor damage to the siding. There were no injuries or other damaged homes. The suspect is a 66-year-old Stephen Aldrich, a white male, was placed under arrest for felony possession of components and explosives. Aldrich had previous explosives-related arrests in Williamson County for felony prohibited weapon, in which he served a sentence of 6 years confinement. And he had, until yesterday, about 2 weeks to go on his parole for that offense. And so our SWAT team and our EOD is familiar with him and his bomb-making shenanigans from the past. So again, he was sentenced to 6 years there in confinement, 2 of which he served in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Again, still on parole for a couple of weeks. The investigation is ongoing, and no further specific details of the case will be released at this time to protect the integrity of the investigation. The entire incident could have ended in a much worse scenario. So again, I'm very thankful and I'm very proud of our EOD and all of our federal partners here that no lives were lost and that no one was injured. I would like to conclude by reiterating the importance of, again, those joint agency collaborations that ensure the safety of everyone in the community and first responders during a very volatile situation. This could have been, you think about the potential for this incident and what could have been, this was stopped. And so again, I'm very proud. Lastly, I'd like to thank the community members that signed up and received Everbridge emergency notifications. You think about the reverse 911, the things we had to do. If you sign up to www.warrencentraltexas.org and click Get Alerts button, that will be an easier way for us to start communicating these issues if something were to come up in the future. Mayor, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, once again, I want to say thank you to Chief Davis and Austin Police Department and all of our partners, our federal partners, and everybody that has been a part of all of this. And now, if you have a couple questions, we'll try to answer those.
Was Aldrich being monitored during this time, or did you have eyes on what he was doing?
No, again, he was on parole, finishing up his parole. He had 2 weeks to go. At this point, it was just a concerned citizen who recognized some potential within the house that called, and thankfully they did.
Is there any policy in place to monitor, somebody like this who was making explosives in the past?
Yeah, so, being on parole, he has a parole officer, and I'm sure he checks in. So there's a check-in facility, and of course, we're notified that people are on parole, but it is not something that we're going and consistently checking up on people. He has a parole officer that would check on him, and that's where that would end.
When you say there was a large amount of explosives found, how much are we talking about, and what kind of damage could it have caused?
Yeah, I don't think they want to release that at this point. So again, it is enough that we were able to, when we detonated it, destroyed this house. And so when you think about containing it to that and what the potential is, these were homemade chemicals that he was making and manufacturing. So what his plan was, I cannot say, but it was absolutely enough to destroy a home.
Well, what measures did you take to contain it as much as you did?
So I think, Mark, do you want to talk about that? What was locked down, or?
Yeah, so specifically, we worked with AFD. We've had similar cases in the past using tamping devices, specifically like absorbent material to line the outside of the structure with additional wood reinforcements so that when we direct the detonation to render the item safe, there's no further damage or limited damage to surrounding homes. So that was a very big consideration. There's a lot of math. Like Chief mentioned, we ATF and FBI chemists were involved from Quantico to make sure that we were, check and recheck the math to make sure, it was as safe as possible.
When you talk about not being able to
detonated outside of the home, what goes into that process, or what goes into that, figuring out and determining that this is something that's going to have to be detonated on site?
Yeah, correct. So we have to determine how volatile each chemical is, right? So you go to, say, Home Depot, and there's chemicals that can exist on the shelf. When you start manipulating or manufacturing those chemicals, they obviously become more volatile. Oftentimes, on a routine basis, we do transport small quantities of chemicals off-site. We have what's called a bomb pot that we pull behind our truck, so less than a pound we can transport to our EOD range. This was such a quantity and the volatility of the chemical consideration that we decided that the safest thing would be to do a controlled detonation inside the house so that we weren't moving this across the city of Austin, endangering anyone in a vehicle, pedestrians, or additional homes.
Then could you share what the chemical was at this time? Do you know?
Yeah, we're not going to give any further details about the specific chemical makeup of the explosives.
For the neighbors out there, I mean, all cleared, safe out there now? Or?
Absolutely. I think by the end of the night they were back in their homes. And you talk about how scary that whole situation is. I think one of the neighbors they had children. So there were children in these homes where this man was manufacturing and making these chemicals. So very, very volatile situation. So as soon as possible, people were back in their homes. Once fire determined it was safe, electric and water was restored, and people returned to their homes.
How many
Mayor-
other people were in that home?
I believe it was just the owner of the house and the arrested.
Does the owner of the house, could they be facing any charges?
I don't believe so at this time. No.
Mayor, given this incident yesterday, and then of course the bomb that was found at the Tesla dealership a couple of weeks ago, what can you share with the citizens of Austin about their safety and how safe they should feel?
Well, the report you just got ought to reinforce how safe people can feel. We've had a situation that we've now walked you through all the detail, well, not all the details, but sufficient details of this to show that the reaction was appropriate. It was detonated in a way that was safe. So we're working very hard and we'll continue to work to make sure that people are safe. And this is an example of how APD working well with partners works to keep our community safe and assure its public safety.
How much time was given to neighbors to evacuate?
I think once the officers got there and determined that there were chemicals inside, they were immediately taken from that residence. And again, looking at the math, how much of an explosion can we expect? That was all taken into consideration. So people were removed from those surrounding homes immediately.
Like hours before or before
Well,
the actual detonation?
Oh yes, it would have been hours before. Yes.
When had Ulrich been released from prison?
It was for a bomb.
No, when was he?
When was he released? I don't think we have that date. Yeah,
It was 6 weeks.
about 6 weeks ago. 6 to 8 weeks ago. Yeah.
All right. I want to reiterate what the chief said about 911, reverse 911s. Those are important. They're a good way for us to communicate, and in this case was a very important way for us to communicate. And she pointed out that there's you can sign up for alerts by going to warncentraltexas.org, get alerts. And by the way, we encourage that when we have press conferences about weather and things of that nature, but it also applies in this case. So we would encourage everybody to do that. That's also part and parcel to the answer to the question about what do you say about how we keep our community safe. Well, we keep our community safe with the help of our community as well. So we ask people, please sign up so that we can get information to you when we may need to get information to you so that we can do things to assure public safety. I want to reiterate how proud I am of the results of this. I want to also reiterate that the two incidents were unrelated. And I want to say thank you again to APD and to all of our partners, including our federal partners. These are pros that do keep us safe, and I want to give them a deep thanks. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate you all. Thank you again. You guys are great. Appreciate you very much. Go out this way. You doing okay? Thanks, y'all. Good to see you.
Have a good one, man.
Thank you.
right now? Can you send an email and we'll schedule something?
Yes.
She's willing to, she just can't right now.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.